Hello, good evening, everybody. And before I get started on tonight's episode of Album Rant, I first just want to say thank you to everyone out there who tuned in my last episode of Face Off, where I compared two American thrash metal artists, Metallica and Megadeth. And I got a lot of comments, actually, and it was actually multiple people who pointed this out. They were like, why did you include the covers albums? Why did you include Garage Incorporated and Garage Days Revisited? And a lot of people were asking for me to do another matchup where I compared the artists once again, but did not include the covers albums. And I'm like, you know what? You kind of have a point here. So before I get started on tonight's episode of Album Rant, I am going to again do a very quick rematch between Metallica and Megadeth. And again, I am eliminating Garage Incorporated and Garage Days Revisited, so there will only be 11 rounds this time. So these first 3 rounds are not going to be any different because it's going to be the same matchup as before. We have Kill 'Em All versus Killing Is My Business and Business Is Good. That went to Metallica. Then we have Ride the Lightning versus Peace Sells But Who's Buying. That also went to Metallica. Then we had Master of Puppets versus So Far So Good So What, and that also went to Metallica. So here is where things are going to start to diverge, because in this round, on the previous episode, the representation from Metallica was the Garage Days Revisited EP, but instead now it's And Justice for All versus Rust in Peace. And both of these albums have their strengths, and both of these albums have some things that may not be such of a strength. The main thing that really sets And Justice for All apart from all of their albums is the songwriting. It is so well written. The songs are so progressive, so complex, so intricate. It definitely contains the best songwriting Metallica has ever produced. However, the main thing that really brings this album down is the sound. The bass is inaudible, the guitars sound flat, and the drums just sound completely weak and completely, not really very powerful. Megadeth, on the other hand, Rust in Peace, on the other hand, is a very great thrash metal album. It's very progressive, very ambitious in scope. So really, the question is this. Does the sound of And Justice for All, is it worse than the songwriting? Is it more bad than the songwriting is good? And the answer is no. I still prefer And Justice for All over Rust in Peace. And Justice for All is just such an ambitious album, and despite some shortcomings, I still think it's better than Rust in Peace. So Rust in Peace is a very great album, but I do prefer And Justice for All more. So I know I'm going to get some flack for that. It's okay. So anyways, the next matchup was the Black Album versus Countdown to Extinction. And both of these albums were kind of a divergence from what came before it. They both really tried to establish a mainstream commercial appeal, a mainstream sound that could appeal to people who may not have been dedicated metalheads and, of course, trying to get on the radio, trying to get on MTV. And I just got to be honest, I know a lot of people do not really care for this album. I don't think the Black Album is as bad as some people make it out to be. I still like the sound, I still like the songwriting, the songs are very catchy, and I always thought Countdown to Extinction was a little underwhelming in my opinion. It's a bad album, it's still a great album, but I do prefer the Black Album. So therefore we have 5 rounds for Metallica and 0 for Megadeth. Now, the next round is going to be Load by Metallica versus Euthanasia by Megadeth. And yes, Load was a serious step down from the previous 5 albums. There is a ton of filler on here. There are a couple highs on here, absolutely, like the Outlaw Torn and 2x4 and the House Jack Build and Bleeding Me. But still, there is an awful lot of filler and some questionable moments, like Mama Said. Euthanasia, however, I think is a far more consistent album. I really think the songwriting is better. I really think that the sound is better, and it's still kind of retaining some of the thrash influences or the thrash sound from the previous 5 albums, while Load really seemed to abandon this. Now, I did put Load above Cryptic Writings on the previous episode. I don't think it's better than Euthanasia. So Megadeth is actually going to win this one. That is the very first upset for Metallica. Yes, Load I do like better than Cryptic Writings. I do not think I like it better than Euthanasia. 5 rounds for Metallica, 1 round for Megadeth. So the next one, as you probably can tell right here, is Reload versus Cryptic Writings. Now, Reload was against Risk on the last episode, and it obviously defeated Risk. However, it's going to be more of a close call on this one because Cryptic Writings is a much better album than Risk is. It still was a step down in my opinion. I still did, had some issues with it, but I do think it's a lot better than Risk. Now, is it good enough to put it above Reload? I don't know, because Reload still has some highs, more highs than Cryptic Writings does. And I still think I'm going to give this round to Metallica. So we have 6 rounds for Metallica and 1 round for Megadeth, okay? It may be I just have a very long history with Reload. Reload is not a great Metallica album, but Cryptic Writings is also not a great Megadeth album. So really, I think I would rather listen to Reload. However, right here, we are really scraping the bottom of the barrel. We have round number 8. We have Saint Anger versus Risk. And oh my God. On the previous album, the previous episode actually, Saint Anger was against The System Has Failed. And obviously the System Has Failed. Completely demolished Saint Anger. This is going to be a much closer call because Risk is probably the worst Megadeth album, and Saint Anger is also the worst Metallica album. But having said all that, I despise Saint Anger. I think I actually would rather listen to Risk. Risk at least gripped me for a little bit before I started to realize I didn't really like it. Saint Anger never gripped me. So yeah, we have 2 rounds for Megadeth and 6 rounds for Metallica. So we are now at, what are we at now? Round number 9. Yeah. Death Magnetic versus The World Needs a Hero. And as I said before, Death Magnetic was a complete and total atonement for the disaster of Saint Anger. Death Magnetic is produced by Rick Rubin, and I thought it was just so explosive, so heavy, so fast, and there were actually guitar solos. Yeah, who would have thought? And so I actually really, really do love Death Magnetic. The World Needs a Hero is also a much better album than Risk. However, I think that Death Magnetic made up for the previous failure far better than The World Needs a Hero did. I think that the sound is better, it's more slick, it's more heavy, it's faster, and The World Needs a Hero I still thought was a little bit flat, but still a lot better than Risk. But yeah, no matter what, Metallica's definitely winning this one. Death Magnetic is above The World Needs a Hero. So 2 rounds left. We have Hardwired to Self-Destruct versus The System Has Failed. And yeah, Kick the Chair on The System Has Failed is a great song, a very thrashy song, very slick production, very fast, and it flows, and it's very fluid, and it flows very, very well. Hardwired to Self-Destruct does have some high moments. The title track is good. Atlas Rise is, as I said before, is the best song on the album. I kind of do like Moth into Flame, and I also like Spit Out the Bone, but man, there is so much filler on Hardwired to Self-Destruct. Like the second disc, I don't know why it's 2 discs by the way, but the second disc, man, it just drags and drags and drags. The System Has Failed doesn't really do that. I'm going to give this round to Megadeth. The System Has Failed is going to defeat Hardwired to Self-Destruct. So, actually, let me think back real quick. Yeah, wait up. The System Has Failed won both the first episode and the second episode. So that all leaves us right here with 72 Seasons versus United Abominations. And I felt 72 Seasons was a much better album than Hardwired to Self-Destruct. I thought it flowed way better, and I thought the songwriting was better, and I thought the production was better also. Something about Hardwired to Self-Destruct I thought was actually kind of flat in some places. I don't know. But having said all that, 72 seasons is a huge improvement. Unite Abominations is also a very huge improvement over what came before it. I would say this was their best album since Rust in Peace. Now, Countdown to Extinction Euthanasia fans out there, really sorry if I upset you, but I think this is their best one since Rust in Peace. But again, what would I rather listen to? This is a very, very close call. I really struggled with this one, and I really just got to go with my gut. I'm going with Metallica, 72 seasons. So that is going to end. We have 8 rounds for Metallica, 3 rounds for Megadeth. So yeah, Megadeth actually fared a little bit better on this one. On the previous episode, the first matchup, Megadeth still only won 3 rounds, but it was out of more rounds. It was out of 13 rounds, and here they won 3 out of 11, so take that for what you will. So anyways, guys, there was my rematch of Metallica versus Megadeth, disregarding the covers albums, and now I'm going to get to the subject of tonight's review. Tonight, what I'm going to review, and you've probably already seen this in the title, I am going to go back to Blue Oyster Cult, and I am going to review their 3rd studio release entitled Secret Treaties, which was released in 1974. But before we get into all that, I'm going to do a brief history of the band. Blue Oyster Cult actually goes all the way back to 1967, believe it or not. That's actually much further back than you may have thought. And they are very well known for their fusion of a lot of different genres, like psychedelic rock, hard rock, heavy metal, and they also delved into soft rock in some of their latter albums, even pop rock. But no matter what, they always maintain a lot of psychedelics, a lot of fantasy and occult themes, which really, push them over into the heavy metal category due to the darkness and the demonic themes they often embarked on. Now, Blue Oyster Cult actually did not begin as Blue Oyster Cult. Initially, they were called Soft White Underbelly, and it all started when producer Sandy Pearlman overheard a jam session which was between Donald Roeser, who was a consistent member of Blue Oyster Cult, and several other bandmates that he had recruited. And so anyways, he came up to them and he decided to pursue a record deal with them. And the original lineup was Donald Roeser on guitar, Albert Bouchard on the drums, Alan Lanier on the keyboards, and someone by the name of Andrew Winters on the bass. And Sandy Pearlman got them a lot of gigs and eventually got him a contract with both Elektra Records and Columbia Records. And he provided them with a lot of lyrics. He wrote a series of poems, and the band took them and kind of incorporated them into their lyrics, which I think is really awesome. But then they needed another member. There was a man out there by the name of Eric Bloom, and he was initially hired actually as an acoustic engineer, but later joined the band as a guitarist and a lead singer. And apparently, Alan Lanier, who was the keyboardist, actually spent the night with some of Bloom's old bandmates from college. He heard demos of Bloom and he was like, wow, this guy can sing. We need to recruit him, and they did, and the rest is history. And he became one of their lead singers and one of their lead guitarists. Now, unfortunately, the band did get some bad reviews in those early days, and Pearlman really encouraged them to change the name of the band, and he actually wanted every member to have their own stage name. Kind of like the guys from Kiss. Gene Simmons, Paul Stanley, Peter Criss, and Ace Frehley are not their real names. And so he came up with a stage name for every single one of the members. But only Roeser kept his, and he became Donald Buck Dharma Roeser, which I personally think sounds kind of silly, but he's the man's a legend, so we'll just keep it at that. So eventually, the band did release an album in the late 60s, I want to say, but it was only released as a promo, and only 300 copies of it were actually released, so that's got to be some kind of rarity out there. And it was on Electric Records, and Bloom was the primary singer, but Roeser did sing a couple of songs. And eventually, Blue Oyster Cult would become a band that did not have a designated lead singer. All of the members took lead vocals at one point or another. Even Alan Lanier, he did sing on the Secret Treaties album. But essentially, the band eventually settled on the name Blue Oyster Cult, and the stable lineup from the first album all the way to the early 80s was Eric Bloom on guitar and lead vocals, Donald Buck Dharma Roeser on guitar and lead vocals, Joe Bouchard on the bass guitar, Albert Bouchard on the drums and actually lead vocals also. Joe Bouchard also took lead vocals. And Alan Lanier on the keyboards, and very rare took lead vocals, but all 5 of those members did take lead vocals at one point or another. So in 1972, they released their first actual proper album, and it was just called Blue Oyster Cult. And I thought it was pretty good. I don't think the production was quite where it should have been. I thought some of the songs sounded kind of flat and maybe not as heavy as I was hoping for, but it was still a great album, and some of the most well-known songs were on it, such as Transmaniacon in C, I'm on the Lamb but I Ain't No Sheep. Then came The Last Days of May. Before the Kiss, A Red Cap, which is one of the band's more well-known songs. I'm not the biggest fan of it. Part of it kind of actually sounds like a carnival, which I'm just like, I don't really like this too much. But we also had Screams, She's as Beautiful as a Foot, and Cities on Flame with rock and roll. Don't. It was inspired by The Wizard by Black Sabbath. So anyways, that was their very first album, and it was just called Blue Oyster Cult. So then in 1973, they followed it up with Tyranny and Mutation. And I have reviewed this before on Album Rant very long time ago, and I thought this was a huge improvement over the debut. I thought the sound was heavier. I thought it was more well produced. I thought it didn't sound as flat. In fact, it didn't sound flat at all. And I thought the songwriting was better. We had the red and the black. We had 7 Screaming Dizbusters, Hot Rails to Hell, OD'd on Life Itself, Wings Wetted Down, and Teen Archer. And again, Eric Bloom did sing most of those songs, but, Buck Dharma sang a few times, Joe Bouchard sang a few times, Albert sang a few times. So again, there is no designated lead singer. And so that is going to bring me to the subject of tonight's review. We are going to talk about Secret Treaties, which was released in 1974. So let's go ahead and check this vinyl out. There is no gatefold. And over here, we have a picture of an ME-262 bomber. And down here, we have some credits. Anything noteworthy? Nah, not really. We have the band right there. Donald Buck Dharma Roeser. It says lead guitar and lead vocals, but strangely enough, this is the only Blue Oyster Cult album that he doesn't sing on. I don't know, strange. We have Eric Bloom on lead vocals. I guess he did keyboards in some places, and the guitar. Albert Bouchard on drums and vocals. Joe Bouchard on bass and vocals. And then Alan Lanier on keyboards, some rhythm guitar, and synthesizers. He doesn't actually sing on this album either, but, the other 3 guys do also. So let's go over here, and we now have side number 1. And another thing about this album, the band did not write any of the lyrics. The lyrics actually were primarily written by Sandy Pearlman and other people, but Sandy Pearlman pulled them from a series of poems he had written, which I think is, pretty awesome, actually. So it all starts with Career of Evil. This is primarily sung by Eric Bloom, but Albert Bouchard does have some harmonies in there. And it's kind of a slow song. It's like, don, 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 and I think I actually really like it. It's not exactly a thunderous, bombastic opener, but I think it is a really good song, and the production is so good and it flows very well. The whole band is just on point, especially the bass. Provides an extra punch to the song, which I really like. But I plot your rubric scarab, I steal your satellite. I want your wife to be my baby tonight. I choose to steal what you choose to show. And I will not apologize You're mine for the taking, I'm making a career of evil. And yeah, I really like this song actually. It's very catchy and very well written. And again, it's heavy, but it's also kind of slow, and that's really a very good balance to strike actually. There is a single version out there, and if you ever pick up the CD edition, the single version is included. And apparently, I've not listened to it too carefully, but Albert Bouchard's vocals are taken out, and some of the more questionable lyrics are taken out also, so you know, it is what it is. But then it segues right into Subhuman. And this one is a little bit softer, actually. Well, actually, it starts out soft. It's like, do. I don't think I did that too well. But then it does start to pick up towards the chorus. It's like, dun. This one is sung by Eric Bloom once again, and I gotta say, he is easily the band's best lead singer. I really wish they'd just let him sing everything, but you know, variety is good. But yeah, pretty interesting arrangement. This one is on a lot of their live albums. It is one of the band's biggest hits. I'm not sure if it's quite my favorite, but I do think it's very well written. It's very catchy. I kind of wish it had been a little bit heavier, but you know, you gotta take what you can get. However, all of that changes on Dominance and Submission. This one is much more upbeat. This one is much heavier and much more hard rocking. And this one is sung by Albert Bouchard, and it's got a very crazy rhythm to it. It's like dun-dun-dun-dun-dun, and I think I did that incorrectly. I tried my best though, okay? But again, it's a very interesting arrangement, and it's very crazy, very psychedelic, very upbeat at the same time. We have I'm not quite sure of the lyrics throughout the verses, but man, I love the chorus. Dominant submission, radios appeared. And we have this New Year's Eve was the final barrier. Dominant submission, radios appeared. And it's, again, very crazy, but also very interesting and very unique at the same time. Yeah, I like Dominance and Submission. But then we come to the album Closer, and it's ME-262, which is named after the ME-262 German bomber that is featured on the cover. This one is also sung by Bloom, and it's actually more of a rock and roll song. And it's heavy, okay? It just comes swinging right out of the gate. It's got a very crunching, very electric guitar intro. I really like it, but what's also very interesting is in the chorus, or kind of before the chorus, it does slow down. It's like, I try my best there again. But again, it does, diverge into a different rhythm towards the chorus, and I actually think it works quite well. I was talking about UFO a couple of weeks ago, and I mentioned that some of these contrasting rhythms where it goes fast, slow, sometimes it really doesn't work out so well. I thought it worked out a lot better here. And I do really do like ME-262. This one is also heavily featured on Greatest Hits compilations. This one is also heavily featured on live albums. Yeah, I really like it. A good old rock and roll song merged with heavy metal. And that might actually be my favorite song from side number one. I was kind of torn between this one and Dominance and Submission. I'm just going to stick with my gut right here. I'm going to say ME-262 is my favorite song from side number one. So, yeah, that's the end of side number one. Side number two is right over here, so let's get right to it. It starts off with KG Cretins, and this is sung by a variety of people. It's sung by Bloom, Albert Bouchard, and Joe Bouchard. They kind of trade off a little bit. It's got a drum intro. It's like da-da-doom. I like it, okay? It's not really all that heavy. It's a little bit softer, actually, but it's still pretty fast and everything. But yeah, this is definitely not my favorite one from this album. A few weeks ago, I did see Blue Oyster Cult for the first time, and this is actually kind of funny. It was Blue Oyster Cult in Kansas. And I thought it was a Blue Oyster Cult concert. So I thought that when I bought my ticket. Well, I get there, and the opening act is coming on, and it's Blue Oyster Cult. So it actually turns out I bought tickets to a Kansas concert featuring Blue Oyster Cult, but I still got to see them regardless, so it's all right. But yeah, KG Cretins was the only song from Secret Treaties that they played, which I thought was very, very interesting because it's easily one of the weaker songs on this album, at least in my opinion. But yeah, the rhythm, it almost sounds jazzy. I might be the only person out there saying that, and if you disagree with me, I totally understand that, but to me it kind of sounds jazzy. But you know, we have, ooh, KG, what you got? What you got there, dummy? What you got there, man? Ooh, KG, what you got? And yeah, Eric Bloom sings the chorus, and Eric Bloom sings the verse, and Albert Bouchard sings the chorus. And so, you know, we have another very interesting arrangement there. But yeah, the song never really fully takes off for me. I agree it is well written. It can be catchy in places, but to me it's just too soft, and that ooh, KG, that whole rhythm, I'm just not too big of a fan of. And that is the main rhythm to this song, so yeah, I mean, it is good for what it is, and let me be perfectly clear, it is far better than a lot of the other stuff out there. But just to me, comparison to the rest of the brilliance of this album, it does kind of fall flat. But things do pick up right in the next song with Harvester of Eyes. It starts off with a very heavy, very crunching rhythm, you know, da-dum-dum, 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 da-dum-dum-dum-dum. And yeah, that whole intro is so heavy and awesome in my opinion. I mean, it's got a great rhythm. It's got a piano in the background also, but it doesn't overshadow the guitars. And so I think it accompanies things very, very well. And man, the guitar solos in this on this song, they're incredible, okay? I'm not sure who's performing. It's either Bloom or Roeser, but whoever's doing it is just absolutely rocking. But we have Harvester of Eyes, that's me, and I see all there is to see. When I look inside your head, right up the front to the back of your skull, well, that's my sign that you are dead. My list for you checks off as null and Harvester of Eyes, dum-dum-da-dum-dum-da-dum-dum-da-dum-dum. And yeah, the chorus doesn't really have much to write home about or anything. It's just, Harvester of Eyes, that's me. Harvester of Eyes. And I see all there is to see. Harvester of Eyes. But yeah, very, very heavy song. Very, very fast song. I love it. Harvester of Eyes is awesome. Now, something very interesting. We have a very interesting arrangement, I guess, coming up. It actually ends with what sounds like classical music being played on a music box, you know, like what some women sometimes have in their bedrooms, and then it's playing that music box for a little bit, but then all of a sudden, Albert Bouchard comes in, we have and it goes straight into the third song from side number 2, Flaming Telepaths. And this one is dark. This one is slow. This one is doomy and demonic, but it's heavy at the same time. And it's very brooding. And Bloom was just perfect for this song. He is such a strong vocalist. I'm not sure if I've said that enough, but man, he is, okay? And again, it starts out very, very slow. I mean, what do we have here? We have, well, I've opened up my veins too many times, and the poison's in my heart, and the poison's in my mind. Poison's in my bloodstream, poison's in my pride. I'm after rebellion, I'll settle for lies, I'll settle for lies. Is it any wonder that my mind's on fire, imprisoned by the thoughts of what to do? Is it any wonder that my joke's in iron, and the joke's on you? Okay? I wasn't really trying to sing in all of that, just towards the end, so I know I suck, but yeah, that's the best you're going to get from me. But yeah, I think this song is awesome, okay? This is easily one of the best songs that Blue Oyster Cult has ever put out, and it's such a shame that it's not more well recognized. Everyone knows these guys for Don't Fear the Reaper and Burnin' For You, and I just think they have so much better material out there. It might be because I've heard those two songs a cajillion times and I'm just sick of them, but you need to check out their other stuff. You need to check out their deep cuts, or at least the stuff that doesn't come on the radio all the time, 24/7. Flaming Telepaths is definitely one of them. Okay, it starts out, like I said, it's very dark, very brooding, but it just keeps building up in the chorus and building up in the chorus. But then all of a sudden, the song just stops. And it goes right into the album closer, which is a song that a lot of people are very familiar with. This one is not a big radio hit. This one is not one that most mainstream people are familiar with, but lovers of Blue Oyster Cult and heavy metal know this song. It is Astronomy, which is once again sung by Eric Bloom. Now, the very beginning is very soft, okay? And we have the piano in the background, and it's really setting the mood. Now, like I said, it's very soft and very, what's the word? Kind of mellow at the beginning. Mellow is the right word. But what they really do is they plant the seed that you just think, or you just know, the song is going to explode and get very heavy at any moment. And well, it definitely delivers in that department. But man, let me back up. The lyrics are actually once again based on a series of poems that were written by Sandy Pearlman. And I think he does have a writing credit on this. And they were called the Soft Doctrine of Imaginus. I think I said that correctly. Imaginus, Imaginos. I'm going to say Imaginus, okay? Anyways, all of this was later expanded upon on an album that they put out in the late 80s, and that was a great album, by the way, okay? I know in the mid-80s they kind of fell off the face of the planet for a little bit, but that 1988 album, you need to check that out, okay? But apparently, from what I understand, it's about aliens guiding an altered human named Destinova through history, and he has all kinds of influences on many famous historical events. Okay, sounds pretty interesting. Could probably make a movie out of that. And eventually, Destinova eventually comes to the realization of who he is, and it's all about his acceptance with his identity. Okay, then we have clock strikes 12 and moondrops burst out at you from their hiding place. Like acid oil on a madman's face, his reasons tends to fly away. Like lesser birds on four winds, like silver scrapes in May. And yeah, I'm not going to do the entire thing there, but yeah, it just keeps going like that and going like that. But then, eventually, the rest of the band comes in. We got that dun-dun-dun-dun-dun, 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 dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. They just got, hey, dun-dun-dun-dun, hey, dun-dun-dun-dun. And then Eric Bloom eventually comes back in and he starts singing once again. He sings the next verse, I guess. And what I really love about it, what is so powerful, what is so incredibly epic in scope, is in the background we still have that rhythm where they're going, hey, dun 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 dun, hey, and I just think that's really awesome. I really was hoping they would have played this when I saw them a few weeks ago. I've looked up a lot of their most recent set lists, and Astronomy just is not in the set list. I don't know why. Maybe it's a legal issue. I don't know. If anyone can shed some light on that in the comments section, I would really, really appreciate it. But I was just so disappointed I did not get to hear that song. I really would have loved it, and I really would have gone berserk. Oh well, I got Cities on Flame with rock and roll and Godzilla at least. But what I also really like is at the very end, or actually this several times in the midsection, the song once again starts getting soft, once again, kind of like the intro, kind of like the very beginning. But then at the very end, it just starts exploding once again. It gets very fast, very heavy, all the way at the end. We have astronomy, a star, astronomy, a star, and he just keeps repeating that over and over. And I just think this whole song is very epic in scope. I think it's very heavy, very well written, very catchy. And man, that would have been such a fist bumper had I been able to hear it, but I at least have it on vinyl. This song has actually been re-recorded many times by the band. I know it's on that 1988 Imaginus album. Again, did I say that correctly? I don't know. And I know they also did a re-record, an album later on in their career where they re-recorded a lot of their past classics, Astronomy being one of them as well. There are multiple live versions for this song, and so obviously the band thinks a lot of this. I think a lot of it. I think a lot of astronomy. I think a lot of this album. I think a lot of this band. And Astronomy is obviously my favorite song from side number 2. Did not have to think too hard about that one, but Harvester of Eyes and Flaming Telepaths are also very epic. So yeah, what do you know? My favorite song from both sides was the side closer. Who would have thought that? So anyways, that is going to conclude my review of Secret Treaties by Blue Oyster Cult. And I want to thank you all very much for joining me tonight. And if for whatever reason you have not heard this album, you definitely need to, because it's a headbanger, it is a classic, and it's absolutely phenomenal. So anyways, next week I'm going to review an album that I've been burning to review for quite a while. And until then, have a very pleasant evening.